All right. What's up, Bowie?
Word.
Thanks for joining me.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we turned the microphone on, just have a little conversation here.
Cool.
And what I wanted to start with is just something you said to me like 3 minutes ago. I was making coffee. It's Sunday. Well, I'll call it morning. For us, it's kind of morning-ish. But Sunday pre-noon, I always stop my coffee at noon. But I know something you're doing is you haven't had coffee for 14 days now.
Actually, going on 16. February, all of February has been coffee free.
And you're still alive?
I'm alive.
Life is okay?
It's okay. The first couple of days was kind of rough.
And I'm here rubbing it in your face.
Exactly. But I noticed some interesting things, for sure. And then things kind of stabilized. So
nice.
First off I was actually, kind of anxious for coffee.
Yeah.
Got past that part.
How long, was that a day? Was that five days?
Probably 2 or 3 days. I was really like, okay. And just the habit of getting up and having coffee. And that's the first thing you do in the morning.
Because I've gotten on and off it before, and it was something similar. It was the habit was hard, because it's like at this time in my morning, I normally do this.
Right.
And not having that was difficult for me in the beginning.
Yeah, and my habit is I would typically have it in the morning, and then I would have a cup after meals, with the exception of the evening. So I would have 2 cups in the morning, and then have lunch, and then just immediately have a cup of coffee after lunch.
Yeah.
So kind of stopping that routine to where I had to find something different than coffee and just going straight to coffee.
Yeah, and that's something that people struggle with sugar, is they get into this sugar routine of after I have a meal, I have a treat.
Right.
And it's not so much it's the habit of like, I'm just used to doing something after this. It's hard when you don't have something to replace it with.
Yeah.
But it just takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, exactly. So it broke the coffee habit fairly quickly. I was actually expecting it to last a lot longer, but after 3 days, I would say I was like, okay, coffee is no longer the first thing that I'm thinking about when I wake up.
Did you have any withdrawal symptoms?
I had some mild headache.
Did you ease your way into it, or did you just say like, hey, today it's over?
I spent January kind of easing, backing off. I was never down to like half a cup of coffee, though.
Yeah.
It was like a cup, pretty solid cup.
Yeah.
Solid cup.
And then gone.
And then it was like, all right, I've got to just cut.
When I got off of it, I gave myself a month, and then I did it like 1 week intervals. And so I'd have just this, and then I'd have this for the next week, and then that for the next week, and then that little bit for a week, and then by the time it was gone, I didn't have any withdrawal symptoms at all, but it was still that final thing of, now I'm not having coffee today, and it's like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
Like,
what you did is definitely a smarter way to do it than what I did.
But it also takes a month.
Yeah.
So you're still doing the thing you don't want to do, if you're choosing not to do it for an entire month before you're free of it.
Yeah.
Where your way, I'm sure, was much quicker.
Yeah, but you have the trade-off of, I had some headaches. I had a little bit of, I guess I would call it brain fog, to where I wasn't quite as crisp as I normally would have been in maybe mid-morning, early afternoon hours when you're naturally kind of tired. But I will say, I didn't realize how much I was using coffee to suppress my appetite, because the thing that I noticed the most was I was hungry quicker.
Interesting. Yeah, because caffeine's a huge appetite suppressant.
So
and that's what like fat loss pills are. They're caffeine pills.
Right.
And it's like, you're just hammering this drug, and that's,
Yeah. So my appetite's gone up. I needed to gain a few pounds, so I've actually put on a few pounds, which wasn't a big deal for me. But yeah, that was a little bit surprising. It just, like, how often or how much it was putting my appetite down.
Yeah.
Because rather than going for, some meat and vegetables, I would just grab another cup of coffee, a little dip of cream in it, and then I would be good for another 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
So the third thing that I really noticed, and this was actually maybe the best, most surprising thing, was my sleep actually improved, and I had really good sleep before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've never had a problem going to sleep. I'm one of those that can drink coffee late at night and immediately 15 minutes later go to bed and sleep solid.
And then that's something everyone looks up to these world-class athletes and they try and do everything they're doing.
Right.
And so if they're doing something with poor technique or whatever, they're like, well, they're world-class, so why would it matter? It doesn't mean that they can't get better.
Right.
So even someone who's having great sleep,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes you don't even know the world that's out there until you get that good sleep.
Yeah. So it was awesome probably the second and third night I woke up and I was like, wow, that was 10-15% better than what I've been getting.
Yeah.
So that's been awesome.
Duration or just how you feel when you wake
just
up?
how
or?
I felt when I wake up.
Yeah, so your actual sleep is just better.
Yeah, just like sleeping absolutely solid through the night.
Yeah.
A good 7-8 hours consistently, and
And-
just wake up.
And we've
be like,
talked
all
about
right.
it before on here, but caffeine, if your body's still trying to metabolize it when you're going to sleep, it doesn't allow you to get into REM sleep.
Right.
And it really affects that stage. And you can't, it's just like alcohol. You can't get there until that stuff's out of your system.
Right.
And so that's why a lot of alcoholics and people like that, waking up in the middle of the dreams all the time because it keeps getting shoved to the end of the cycle, or you're not getting enough of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that surprised me because again, I sleep pretty good, and I don't use fitness trackers to measure my sleep. I don't actually trust them a whole lot. I think they probably cause some psychosis in a lot of people that get used to looking at it and then deciding how they slept based off of what the watch is telling them.
Yeah. Or this says I'm not recovered enough to work out hard today. It's like, well, what do you feel like?
Yeah.
Maybe, and it's fine. Sometimes you got to work out when you're not feeling great. But I agree.
So if I wake up and I feel great, sun's shining, I want to go out and go for a jog or go do some kettlebell work, then I'm going to go do it no matter what a fitness tracker tells me, right? So, so those were the three things that I noticed the most, which was cool. And I told some people in the gym, and they thought I was crazy for quitting coffee.
Well, especially if you're a coffee drinker.
Yeah.
Trying to imagine life without coffee is just like, well, there's no point in trying to. It's just like sugar and all these things we talk about all the time. It's like there's no point in trying to imagine your life without it because you don't understand until you're removed from it. Right. And then you're looking back and you're like, oh, yeah, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. You just got to go down the path and see where it takes you.
And you very quickly realize that it's not that big of a deal. Like,
it's not.
People think that whatever it is, the sugar or coffee, that's like, I can't. Just absolutely can't.
Yeah.
And then 5 days in, you're like,
yeah.
Okay. It wasn't that big of a deal.
Exactly.
And you get over it. And the more I am a big believer in doing this with multiple different things. Do it with sugar, do it with coffee, do it with something else. Just don't let things have control over your life and just use some willpower, practice it.
And be willing to experiment.
Yeah. And you figure out that all these things that you kind of get into the routines of, that's exactly what they are. The routines, you don't actually need them. And if you have to go on with life without it, it's pretty good.
You're going to be just fine. Yeah. And I love the just experimenting with things. And because so many people just look at it like I never get to have coffee again in my entire life. It's like, no, try it without it and get a new perspective on what this thing is doing to you or for you or whatever.
Yeah. And one of the reasons that I actually did this is I haven't been a coffee drinker my entire life. I didn't actually start drinking coffee consistently until I was probably in my early 30s, mid 30s. And I remember when I started, like I used to get shaky, jittery, start sweating, like hyper active. And I obviously over time those effects went away. So I'm very, very curious to see March 1st when I have my first cup of coffee.
What happens? If
my mind just explodes, right? Like if I can't sit still. Because without a doubt, coffee is a drug. It is very much a stimulant.
For sure.
People just get deadened to the effects of it. So pulling it out and then using it
and it's
wisely.
A drug that needs to be cycled so you don't go from drinking this much to this much to this much to this much 4 times a day.
Yeah.
And that's where most people get. And it's like it's not doing anything for them anymore. But the habit of it is just pounding and pounding, and you got to pound it down.
Yeah, yeah, and I was doing this too. I ended up substituting coffee for instead of drinking more water or drinking some other type of fluid. Just drink more coffee.
Yeah.
And
so, how much coffee were you having in a day?
I was probably up at 3 to 4 cups a day.
And I feel like whenever people say cups,
no, mine were legit.
Okay, actual cups.
Yeah,
because people are like, I have 1 cup a day. It's like, well, that's not a cup.
Not the Starbucks Super Venti Tri Latte, whatever the hell they serve there.
Yeah.
No, like little coffee cups. So.
Yeah. So what ultimately made you decide to get off of coffee? And is this a forever thing, or is this something you're trying?
No, this is something I'm just going to try for January. Again, I'm very curious to see about how my body reacts when I reintroduce it coming back in. If I get like the super shaky, jittery sweats, then I'm probably going to keep the coffee levels pretty low and use it as a stimulant as necessary. If it just helps improve my mental clarity and my focus, perfect. Then you know it'll go back into the routine.
And I feel like that is extremely important because I've been through the same thing, and I got off of it. I got off of it mainly because when I would get a little sick, the like achy, I'm just gonna lay down, I just don't really feel like eating type of sick. And it took me a while to figure it out as I do that, and then I would get incredibly sick. And what I didn't understand or didn't realize is that I was a tiny bit sick, and then I had coffee withdrawal symptoms that were huge. And so chills, headache, just feeling terrible. And then I was putting all of that on like the virus I had, and it was like, no, all of that is you didn't have coffee today, you crazy person. And so what I did is I weaned my way off, and I was off of coffee for like 6 months and I was just like, man, why did I ever drink coffee? It's like, I don't need it, all of this stuff. Then I went on vacation, and we were just relaxing in the morning. I was like, it's vacation, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I had a cup of coffee, and my brain lit up. And this probably was going to happen here. I'm just going to start talking. But what I find is part of my morning routine is doing mobility. I have a cup of coffee and I start reading, and it's like 15 to 30 minutes in, my brain just starts going crazy, and immediately I have this like urge of it, like I have to go to my computer and I have to work because I have so many ideas because it's a drug. And so for me, ultimately, I'm better at when I have it. I don't have it afternoon. I limit how much I'm allowed to have. But for me, I was balancing it all out. And ultimately, I decided that coffee does have a place in my life. But I still will probably go on stints where I get rid of it. That way I can get sensitized to it again and those types of things. Just because when I'm sensitized to it, it just lights my brain up like crazy.
And that's exactly what I'm hoping for. Right. I don't want it to be to the point to where I'm so hyper that I can't focus on one specific things, and I'm just bouncing around from a bunch of different things. I want it to be that sweet spot of where like I've got my attention, I'm going on one thing, I'm pounding it out, going to another. And that may very well be, dose dependent. Like I can have a cup of coffee and that's my sweet spot, but if I go to 2, then I start bouncing off the walls.
And we all know that moment of you've had one sip too many, and that one extra sip just feels different, and you start you just catch yourself it's like I've been staring at the same spot, and then you're like, I know I'm staring, and it's like I don't want to stop. I'm just having fun looking at whatever I'm looking at. It's like, that's too much.
And you asked me how this all came about. And it was actually working through the Momentum program with Vidisha.
Nice.
Because we asked her to stop drinking coffee in the afternoon. And I think that was worse for her than asking her to stop eating sugar. Like the sugar she was expecting, she was like, all right, they're going to make me put down the sweets. But when you said no coffee in the afternoon, her top kind of fell off a little bit. And I was like, don't worry, I'll do it with you. No big deal. And then I started paying attention to my habits. And I was like, first cup of coffee in the morning is fantastic. Sit outside, watch the sunrise, play with the dogs, read a book, whatever. It's awesome, tastes great. And then I would go back in, and my second cup was good, but it wasn't like extraordinary like that first one. And then by the time I got
diminishing returns on each one.
By the time I got to my third cup, was just after lunch. It was just routine, right? And I said, okay, I'm asking Vidisha to break habits, so this is one of my habits. I'm gonna break it and see how it works. So.
And that's been something really cool about the Momentum program we've been doing with people, because it's you, me, and April all doing it together as coaches with people.
Right.
We all live very similar in what types of food we eat, how much we work out, what we do to recover, how we prioritize sleep, but we all do it a little differently. So it's been really cool to learn things from you and what you do, and then be like, oh, well, I can try and do this in my... So it's been really cool, not just watching people go through it, but also watching y'all coach people through it, and then almost be like, oh, they don't know it, but they're coaching me right
exactly.
now. And that's
exactly.
been really cool.
Yeah. And it's been fun to watch them, both Vidisha and Daniela have both been, once they've made it past the humps, they're like, okay, this part's easy now. Let's go on to the next page.
And that's the cool, and that's an experience. I feel like me and you have probably had that experience so many times with so many different things. Now we know it.
Yeah.
But so many people don't give themselves enough credit.
Right.
And they don't understand that yet, of where we understand, which is why you're probably haven't had any relapse, or like you're just doing it because you've done so many things like that where it's like, I can do anything for 2 weeks and I know I'm going to have a different perspective on it 2 weeks from now.
Right.
And I've done this 9 different times. And every time I'm glad I did it and I learned something. So let's just do it. As opposed to when it's the first time you're doing it, you're like, this could kill me.
Yeah. Yeah, the first time is always super scary. You.
Right. It's like, how am I going to live? And it's like, you're going to be fine. Yeah. But you build up that experience and then you can use it for so many different things.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been good. Learning a lot from coaching the Momentum program, and those ladies have been doing a just killer job at it.
They're crushing
been fun
it.
To watch.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So on the way over here, I crossed under what is that? MLK Boulevard, and I saw the Austin Marathon going on. I forgot that was today. But clearly, me and you aren't running it in the Austin Marathon.
No.
But there might be some people running in it. But it kind of reminded me. Something that we see all the time in here, and this will kind of segue into, I know we wanted to talk about programming. What we see all the time is people feel like that they need to choose, I need to do this thing or I need to do this thing. And so when they're doing something like running a half marathon or a marathon, they stop what they're doing and then they get completely on like a running or a very specialized program. Mm-hmm. And I think we both think, and correct me, I don't want to speak for you, but I think we both think clearly as we get closer and closer to events, the specificity of what we're doing has to look more and more like the event. 100%. And so when we're way out, we can do all sorts of different things. And as we get closer and closer and closer, it's like if you're going to run a half marathon, and it's not just, I want to go one time and see what I can do, because every single person listening right now, gun to their head, could do a half marathon. It's just if they want to or not today. If you're actually going to train for it, you got to get more and more specific. But what I feel like people do is they stop what they're doing altogether, and they usually jump straight onto a running training program. And the running training programs that I see them do are always just so generic. And so I feel like just like it's the same mistake people make here in CrossFit, is they look at a world-class athlete and they try and follow the world-class athlete's program. And they're not spending the time recovering like this athlete is. They don't have the 20 years of workout history this athlete has. So a big kind of issue I see with a lot of people who follow these running programs is the running programs usually, you know, they vary in how they implement it, but it's usually something like you run 3 miles, then the next week you're going to run 5, then 7, then you're going to come back down to 5, then 7, then 9. And so by the time you're doing a marathon, you've gone on a 12, a 15, an 18, a 20-mile run.
Right.
And for people that don't have this background of marathon training, it's killer.
Yeah.
And it's like if you run 12 miles, just keep going. Do it that day.
Exactly.
Just end it.
Call it.
And so a lot of just things going on. I feel like people could do it in a much smarter way where they can absolutely get more specific to the event, but they can also do it in a way that's not going to get them overuse injuries just because they don't have this giant training background.
Yeah.
So something I just got into is just rucking. If my wife watches this, she's just going to make fun of me because she's heard me say the word ruck like 1,000 times in the last few weeks. But as I was doing it, I was like, oh man, this is an amazing marathon training tool.
Yeah.
Because I'm walking, so I'm not getting this like huge pounding on my joints. You put on heavy weight. So rugging is basically you just take heavy weight in a backpack and you walk, run, do some stuff with it, but usually walking. And it's like my heart rate gets up pretty fast and it stays at like a slow, steady thing. I have to keep myself upright for a long period of time. So mixing that with running could very potentially be a nice, easy way to get people more specific into a sport, but without having to take the beating on your joints over and over again. Yeah. So I feel like, I guess that was a long-winded just kind of thought of just, even though we do need to get more specific, especially being CrossFitters who like to do other things, we don't need to go 100% specific because running a marathon is probably not the only thing you care about in your life. You care about how your joints and your knees and your ankles and everything feels. You care about not losing all of this strength and flexibility that you've worked so hard for. And so you can keep a program well balanced while still getting more specific and specializing in things as you go.
Yeah, and I'll add my 2 cents on there. So I think runners in the last decade or so have started to realize the importance of strength training. Right? Whereas earlier than that, at least not to my recollection, it was if you wanted to be a runner, you just went out and ran.
You ran.
You didn't ever come in and do squats or deadlifts or any type of strength training. So I think that at least the running community started to pick up on that. But surely if people are going to train for half marathons and marathons, don't just quit strength training, because obviously the more force production you can do per step, the easier it is. So the stronger you are, the easier that run is going to be.
And the strength training, and they've been doing a lot more anaerobic training, like WODs types thing, because you're running a marathon, now you got to go up a hill. It's like you need another gear. You can't just have flat ground this steady. It's like you need different gears, and you don't need to spend a ton of time in them, because especially if that's your specialty, but they are training them more and more and getting a lot of benefit out of it.
Yeah, that was the second thing, is the interval training and the repeat training, and I guess there's a slight difference between those two, but being able to go at high intensity, then back it down, then high intensity and back it down, that has shown to be pretty effective for cardiovascular training, right?
And all the anaerobic stuff we're talking about. So that's kind of the benefit there, is it's less time, burns the same amount of fat. Everyone thinks to burn fat you have to go long, slow distance, and they kind of even, high intensity and long, slow distance kind of even out over the course of a day. But doing that more anaerobic, sprinty type power work has carryover into both, where one only has carryover into one.
Yeah. And so between those two, between the strength and the intensity training, the anaerobic stuff, that's pretty much what we do here in CrossFit. Right? Yeah. So that's what we're getting hit with 3 to 5 times a week. That's excellent. So,
and I know, go.
For anyone that's training for a marathon or a half marathon, I would not stop doing CrossFit in hopes that running more is going to improve your running. I think that's a fallacy. And then the third thing is, like you already mentioned, the biggest thing when I was running, and I never did a half, the longest I ever did was my Tough Mudder, which was 11 miles. But as I was training for that was, like you said, the joints take a beating. And I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but the joints and the tendons and the ligaments take a lot longer to build up capacity just because they don't get as much blood flow.
Absolutely.
So instead of muscles being able to recover in a couple of weeks, it may take joints and ligaments and tendons 9 to 12 months.
And it takes much longer for those to develop as a foundation of your body. Where you can develop muscle pretty fast when you're a beginner, but it takes those ligaments and tendons years and years and years and years to develop the resiliency. And so especially people getting into a high impact thing like running without having a huge running background, they haven't spent the years building up the muscles and tendons to be able to take training week after week after week after week. And so just finding different ways where we can work cardio. And that's another thing we get a lot is like, well, when do we do cardio? As they're out of breath, gasping for air after a workout in here. It's like, you just did cardio, but they don't think of it as cardio. Anyway, But you can build up that base of aerobic capacity while doing different things and lower impact things on your muscles and joints in the gym. So you can have this kind of nice balance and marriage around
And the Go Ruck thing, I think, is an excellent way to do that, because you're taxing the cardiovascular system. Like you said, you have to stay braced. You have to stay in good positions. You're going to put some pressure on the hips and on the knees and on the joints, but it's not going to be such a pounding. It's not going to be, 200,000 steps or whatever it is it takes you to run a marathon. It's going to be something less than that, and you can easily judge. You can go out for a mile or 2 miles and get a very good, solid workout in with 20 pounds on your back and call it a day and not have to spend 5 hours out there.
And not have to beat your joints up as much. Just like in a bike, I'll ride my bike up to the gym every now and then, and I think that's great. But the positions you're in on a bike, it's like I work hard and you're bent over. It's like, well, get the shoulders back. So it's like I'm working hard to be in position, but my hip is in flexion or bent for an hour. And it's just like, so I try and stand up just like, if you're sitting at work, you got to so I try and stand up on the pedals, and it's just like, so there's all of these other things we can do, but when you go just one discipline, it's just like if you were only going to deadlift and that's the only thing you did every day for a workout, it's like you are going to get beat down hard. You need that variety that also contributes to the other stuff to really, really help out.
You need something that's working as antagonistic muscles to make sure there's some balance there for sure.
And I think it's more fun. Instead of just going for a long, slow run all the time, switching it up and go for a long, slow run, do some interval work so you can actually work on running technique and your speed and your turnover. Throw on a backpack and go walk. And it's like, these are all things that are going to translate directly to it. But you don't have to just do that one thing all the time.
Put a lot of variety in there. Go run with a jump rope, right? That's super challenging coordination-wise. You can't go very far. Something like that. Just mix it up. Go skipping. Skip for distance, skip for height instead of just running. To throw it up. The people that you go and you see around Town Lake, and you see them out there every weekend if you go out there, right? And they're just running laps.
With knee braces and ankle braces. And
to me, it's just such an inefficient way to train. Now, maybe they've been doing it since they were 5 years old, and they've built up the ligament and tendon capacity, and it's just what they love, and they zone out, and that's their meditation, whatever it is, cool. But if you are just wanting to train for a half or a full, I think there are way better ways to do it than spending 4 hours a weekend out there running.
And I do think there's some people that get to a point in their running where they use it as kind of meditative. If they just go out there to shut it down, and that's kind of their thing, it's like, well, that's great. They're not going high intensity. They're just going long, slow. And that can be extremely useful. But I feel like those people are so few and far in between. So I feel like what everyone does is they want to start working out, or they want to get their cardio better. That's, for us in here, that's what always happens is we've got CrossFitters and they want to get their cardio better, so then they start adding in running workouts in addition to everything they're doing in here. But they want to get their cardio better, so they start running, and then they just pound and pound and pound. So these people, they start working out. Okay, so I'm sorry, I had two different thoughts there. So I'll go back to the person who just wants to start working out for the first time. The easiest thing to do, and I think it's probably where every one of us started, is go for a jog. It's like, that's what we do. So I think what happens is people get, because it's scary coming in here.
Absolutely.
If you've never worked out before, and now you're going to come into a CrossFit gym, and then you walk in and everyone looks like they're professionals and they know what they're doing. They have the technique. They've got barbells. A lot of people grew up and they've never used barbells, and that's why a lot of these other programs that use really light dumbbells and kettlebells can be a good kind of segue into it, but it's not the end. But anyway, so they're scared to go to the gym, so they jog, and then they just keep jogging more and jogging more and jogging more. And it's really their fear of looking stupid in the gym that keeps them running, as opposed to just, like we talk about a lot, it's just like when something scares you, you just got to walk right towards that thing, and that will impact your life so much better. And that'll open up so many opportunities for you, even if you end up not liking CrossFit. It's not for everybody. But just having the ability to, I've learned how to squat, and I've learned how to do a push-up. Now you open up your world of things workout-wise that you can do. And you don't just have to be the knee brace, ankle brace,
Right.
slow runner on the hike and bike trail that runs and their leg just swings around. It's like that person guarantee will have knee surgery very soon, and they don't know any better, and actually they kind of do, but they're usually just paralyzed by fear.
Yeah.
And that's the thing they do, and they're comfortable with it, and sometimes you just got to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And here we talk about, or at least you and I have talked about it, but we also, we work out a lot, but we also want to look like we work out.
Yeah.
And if one of the things that I hate about people that are marathon runners is you look at them and they just do not look like
they look like prisoners. Yeah. They look like they've been held prisoner, they're not given a ball of rice, like they're starved to death.
Right. And they just don't look healthy to me. I'm like, hey, go eat some meat and vegetables, add a little bit of fat there, put some body weight on, and we will improve your life so much more than being able to run 26.3 miles, however damn far it is. And then on the opposite side, you have some extremely overweight people that can still run really long distances. It just, the running's not doing anything for them anymore in terms of improving their fitness.
Yeah, because they don't have those other lifestyle factors like we talk about all the time.
Yeah, and so some of that variety and getting in here and doing something different to challenge the body in different ways, I think is extremely important to developing overall fitness.
Yeah.
Right? Not just, running is, we were built to walk and run.
And we want to be able, I guess we should mention that too, we want to be able to run. So we want to be able to do a half marathon or, I think a marathon, your body takes a beating, and you have to have a real good reason why you want to prove that to yourself. So many people, we do intros with people, and so many of them are like, I haven't worked out in 2 years because I did a marathon and I had knee surgery. And it's like, people are getting seriously injured doing this thing just to prove it to themselves.
Right.
So you really have to know what you're getting into there. But going back to the health of it is, a lot of people put marathon runners up on this pedestal of one being super fit, where if you ask a marathon to sprint or a marathon runner to sprint, they've got one speed. That's all they can do. They usually are inflexible in the exact same area. So we can go on and on there with the fitness side of things. But as far as health, it's really unclear if that's actually that much of it is healthy. So it's just like world-class CrossFit, is that healthy? And it's like, I don't know. Probably not. It's it's like football.
Yeah.
It's probably taking years off of their lives, but they're choosing to do that because they're trying to be the best in the world. We're just like, cool, you get to do whatever you want, but is it healthy to train like that day in, day out and put the pound? And it's like, probably not.
Yeah, these Matt Frazier's and these guys, it's going to be interesting to see in 10 years what their life actually looks like when they can no longer compete in the games, and if they're broken, or are they healthy, or are they able to
and it might
move?
surprise us the other way, but I think our guess is, they're going to be pretty broken down by it.
I think just in general, the body has a limited amount of beating that it can take.
Yeah.
And the more you pound in, the shorter number of years, the later in life it's going to come back to bite you.
And then the interesting thing, too, is when they interview NFL football players that are beat down, can barely walk, maybe close to the end of their life, they wouldn't change a single thing.
Right.
So it's not to say that way is not a way you can choose to do, and there's but you should know what you're choosing, as opposed to being a very amateur CrossFitter.
Right.
Choosing to work out in a way, and in your head you're like, this is healthy, but really you're going down a path that these professionals go down to be world class, that is actually, they know, hopefully, that it might not be the healthiest way to do things. And I feel like CrossFitters get caught up in that, where it's like, no, we can have this nice balance of everything and get you make you an amazing athlete, and make you healthy, and make you look really, really good. All of these things.
Yeah, and this comes back to people have to decide what are they training for, right? If you're training for a marathon, that's a very specific purpose. We can help design your training to fit that.
Yeah.
If you're training to be a games athlete, probably not here, but we can design to fit that. Don't
Yeah.
recommend it. But most of our clients, most of the gym goers, they just want to be healthy, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be healthy not just in the now, but also in the future.
Yeah.
Right?
They want to be healthy and physically capable of doing really cool things.
Yeah,
but that's a balance that we gotta keep in mind. So the other thing I was thinking about when I was rucking the other day is I had 50 pounds and I was like, my God, this is hard. This is brutal. And it's like every now and then I'd go for a little like shuffle jog. And so the immediate first side, and I'm going to do this, is I'm going to record myself working out. And then I'm going to record myself working out again with a weight vest. Because it's like with 50 pounds, so that takes me from 145 to 195. And it's like a lot of people have 50 pounds extra on them. And it's like what I'm capable of with 50 pounds on me is like nothing. What I'm capable of with just body weight, even throwing weight around, is like I'm for my size and for how much I work out and how serious I take it, it's pretty capable. And then with 50 pounds, it immediately goes to, oh my God, all of this running technique stuff we coach. It's like, this is really hard.
Yeah.
And then I can't imagine what pull-ups and all these other things day in, day out
Right.
are like. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
people can just lose some body fat because they care so much about performance. They care about what they look like, but all they want to do is work out. And what we've learned as coaches is it's really hard to motivate someone and tell them, oh, don't do that because it's unhealthy. That word doesn't mean anything. Right. Don't do that because it might cause an injury later. People don't respond. They respond to performance. And it's like, man, losing fat, it is incredible. So anyway, I'm very curious. I kind of want you to do it too, is maybe us do a workout together and then throw a 20-pound vest on. So 20 pounds is a weight, or maybe even 10, something where it's like a weight that like almost everyone could lose if they wanted to, 10 pounds. And let's see what that does to us.
So I weigh about 200 pounds.
Uh-huh.
Say you're 150. So we need to do a weight that is an equal percentage. So if you do 10 pounds, I need to do the equivalent weight at whatever that would be for 200 pounds.
Uh-huh.
That way, it's like adding 10% of body fat, right?
Yeah.
And how are we?
How much does that actually impact it? And it's going to be completely drastic.
Yeah, it sucks. I've done this before.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
I've tried. I was pretty good at pull-ups one day.
Yeah.
And I had a friend who was overweight complaining that he had to pull more weight than me. So I strapped on 45-pound plates and started doing pull-ups.
And you were like, oh, man, you do have to move more weight.
I'm like, yes, this is hard, but you should be working your ass off to lose the weight so you can do pull-ups.
Exactly.
Right? I've done the rucking, and not with a ruck pack, but with a backpack to train for hunting.
Yeah.
Because people pack out 80 pounds worth of animals on their back in the mountains up and down.
That's crazy.
Right? Military folks and first responders, firefighters carrying tons of equipment, even police officers wearing vests, carrying equipment.
Yeah.
Right? They're adding 10 pounds easily. Firefighters are probably up to like 80 pounds with their oxygen tanks and stuff. So being able to train that way is extremely useful, and also understanding the limitations of your strength and what happens when you have excess body weight, excess backpack weight is extremely valuable just to understanding life.
Because everyone, especially with strength things, everyone talks about mass moves mass. And if we got to get stronger, we got to put on weight. It's like, I don't know, throw a 20-pound vest on me and make me max a back squat. I'm not going to be and I know the proportions of where it would be, but it's like, that's 20 more pounds I got to move.
Yeah.
And so I think people get mixed up, and it's really cool listening to all the very high-level powerlifting coaches and strongman coaches, and something kind of going around. And I really think Mark Bell, who I really like that guy. He's kind of I like him. He's kind of out there, but he's very honest and open about things. But I think he's kind of leading the charge and opening people's eyes up that you can be extremely big and strong and have a reasonable body fat percentage.
Yeah.
And so I think everyone is seeing that like mass doesn't move mass, muscle mass moves mass. And the reason why all these strong men are so giant is because to optimally recover from their workouts, they're not taking any chances. And they're like, I'm going to eat so much that my body has everything it needs to maximize it, as opposed to them trying to figure out, okay, what is the perfect balance of giving my body everything it needs and reducing inflammation and keeping the body fat down so the muscles get everything it needs, but I don't have all this excess weight. So that's kind of, it's been really cool over the last couple of years. That's kind of the direction. And it hasn't, obviously, when you look at strongman and powerlifting, it hasn't made its way through the whole thing. But even body, it's like all of this stuff is really coming back to this thing, which is cool because everyone can get out ahead of it. The thing that 10 years from now is everyone's going to think is so obvious. It's what they're starting to talk about now.
And if I remember, Ed Cohen, like one of the greatest powerlifters ever, he wasn't like a super massive overweight guy. And for his strength to his body weight ratio was just incredible. I mean, he's still considered to be one of the greatest. So I think people are going to kind of start finding that balance of, I need to be super, super strong, but I need to have a reasonable body weight to be able to manage life. And you don't have to have excess fat. But you're absolutely right. People are just, I mean, these guys are pounding food, like full pizzas, a full bottle of olive oil on the pizza, and that's one meal.
And then it's hard, for amateurs to look at that, and they're like, well, these are the strongest people on the planet. Like, this is what you got to do. And it's like, no, even they are getting coached in a different way and becoming better. So it's like, that works for these reasons, but it also has a detriment for these reasons. And they're figuring out how to get everything out of it without the detriment. And it all goes back to just like, doing things the right way. And having extra body fat is not helping strength. It doesn't.
Agreed.
Having the amount of food that helps you recover helps. But if you have too much of that and you have extra body fat, it's a detriment.
And one other thing before we leave this topic. So these professional athletes, we brought this up a couple of times, they have been filtered to where they are genetically fit for their sport. Football athletes have gone through junior high, high school, college, to where they are filtered to get the best genetically capable, their body types, their body proportions, all of that.
And think of the people that are there. It's not just everyone who does it that way gets there. It's like, no, there's a lot of people doing nothing different than those people that fail. 100 of them for every one person that you're seeing has made it through the gauntlet to that point with genetics and their effort and all these things, just stars aligning.
Everything has to align, right? And the same thing with powerlifting, right? You're never going to be a 365-pound powerlifter.
Not going to happen.
Your body size is
I can't imagine what I would look like.
Not going to work out, right? So most people are not going to ever be CrossFit Games athletes. The Matt Frasers, the Fronings of the world, they are genetically just adapted for this particular sport. Most of them are shorter, can snatch and clean ridiculous amounts. They've just got incredible strength that way. I will never, no matter what, even if I started way back in the day, would never be a games athlete. So when we talk about comparing ourselves to professional sports and professional athletes, and that's how they do it, you always have to keep in mind that they have been filtered through a process to get to those particular people. You don't ever see the millions that were probably the same way, but they had a mental aspect wrong. Or, they were 2 inches too long in the femur, something that just made the proportions slightly different. So
and it doesn't mean we can't be incredible athletes.
Absolutely.
But sometimes you just don't put so much pressure on yourself. Or and if that's something you want to strive for, it's like, go for it and see what can happen and go all in. If you're going to go for it, you got to go all in. But so many people just put so much pressure on themselves that are amateurs. It's like you're 20, we'll give them in the 20s. You're 28, you just started CrossFit. You've been working out on and off for 3 years. It's like the people who are the best in CrossFit are 25. They've been working out for 20 years. And it's incredible. They started when they were 5 years old doing gymnastics or whatever. And it's like they have an incredible training age.
So absolutely go for it. But making that comparison to professional athletes is probably not the best. You need to step back and compare yourself to like a broader...
other amateurs doing and I guess this is, kind of patting ourselves on the back and cheesy in a way, but like me and you, and April and Suzanne and Audrey, the other coaches, it's like we live the amateur way. I don't train any more than what the members do. Right. I don't do anything different than what they do, except maybe I went on a ruck, and it's like, so I might do stuff like that every now and then. But like, our lifestyles are set up, and it's like we're trying to help people figure out how to be an everyday person and get the results that they're looking for, as opposed to what's the best and we're learning from the best in the world, but we're not copying the best in the world.
Exactly. I think that's a perfect segue actually into programming.
Okay.
Because talking about getting results, now it's my turn.
All right.
For a little. So let's start off and talk about the overall scheme of how you design the programming here. Because a lot of times folks come in and they look at the board for a week and they either aren't thinking about last week or the week before. They see some similar things that are happening, but they're trying to piece the big thing together. And we've got the board out there that talks about mesocycles and microcycles.
Yeah.
But why don't we just walk through that quickly? And then I'll jump in with some questions I think members would have.
Cool.
And maybe we can enlighten them a little bit so they have a better perspective.
And so programming just means kind of the plan of the workouts. Or programming is all of the workouts written out for infinity. Like that's what the programming is. So what we do is something, it's actually not CrossFit, which is funny because we're a CrossFit gym, and I completely believe in CrossFit and their methodologies and everything behind it, and I do not believe in how they develop strength. And so I've done a lot of research. The people I've been gravitated, I kind of gravitate to are the power lifters at Juggernaut, Westside Barbell. Those are kind of the two most popular things. But starting strength, so Ripito, who's the kettlebell guy you just got me up? Pavel
Pasolini.
There's a few American Olympic weightlifting coaches that I've read their books. There's, I guess it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to think. So I've researched and I'm obsessed with programming, and kind of something that is very, very common, that's very anti-CrossFit, especially for strength, is that you need time to adapt to a movement to get everything out of it. And it's why, and our members might have felt it, or probably feel it every time we go through these cycles, is we throw, for a set of 5, 3 sets of 5 at 75% of a back squat. And that week, even though we know you could probably max a set of 5 at like 87.5%. So even though 75% is nowhere near it, what we see is that first week is like, it feels like undoable. And then the next week we add either heavier weights or more reps or a little bit of both, and they can do it. And then the next week we add again, and they can do it. And the next week we do it again, and then we kind of move on from there. Right. And if we would try and throw them at week 4 on week 1, people would be failing all over the place. So you need time for your body to adapt to the stimulus to get the most out of the stimulus. Right. And if we're doing more of the way the bigger picture of CrossFit does strength work, is you're going to go 5x5 back squat, and then later the week you're going to do 8 sets of 3 split jerks, and then the next week you're going to do 5 sets of 1 front squats. You never have the time and the progressions to develop your muscles, to develop your technique, to develop the tissue and joints, like the ligaments and tendons in the way. So, and that kind of goes into like the specificity. So with our cycles, with the strength work in particular, we're really trying to work that specificity so we can overload your body in a safe way, but also that we can actually get to these weights that you've never done before in your life. Where if we're just hitting this, and jumping all over there, constantly varied, in my opinion, that is not the optimal way to develop strength. Okay. So that's where we diverge from CrossFit. is in our methods and our cycles of developing strength alongside of fitness. And then for things like balance, speed, coordination, accuracy, agility, endurance, cardio, all these other things, that's where the constantly varied stuff that comes in can be so powerful. So that's where we are completely in line with CrossFit and mixing and matching longer endurance things with short, fast things, with gymnastics and weightlifting, and some days only doing this and some days doing all 5 of these things and getting the variance, but really using that as accessory work to the strength.
Okay.
And it's just speed, strength, and power are just developed ideally differently than cardio, than these other things. And so we can't just treat them all as the same and just constantly do random, varied, it's not random, it's varied, constantly do varied stuff.
Right.
So
I think you would agree that strength takes longer to develop than cardio does.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of my favorite quotes is, "How do you get strong?" I wish I knew who answered this, but it was some world-class Olympic weightlifter or power lifter, and his answer was, "You lift something heavy every week for 20 years. That's how you get strong." It's like, how many people do we know that have been working out for a couple years and they are in incredible aerobic shape?
Right.
And it's like a lot. It's like every single person in the gym, all of them. So it's like strength takes a long time to develop, and this aerobic stuff is much faster.
Right.
But that's why I think we have to prioritize the strength as being the big blueprint,
Right.
Because it also takes way longer to recover from a heavy taxing set strength-wise than it does from an aerobic effort.
Right.
So those things, and so that's why we kind of have to prioritize where that is, so we can be smart about it year in, year out, and actually put us on a trajectory that is optimal, and use the other stuff to be like, where does this stuff fit in that works together with it?
Right.
So
you're doing our programming on 3-month cycles, right? If I remember correctly.
just about.
Right.
So what we do is we go through, and this year we're trying something different where we're going to be consistent with the cycles. So what I mean is, we used to do a hypertrophy phase, but maybe 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
Then moving into a strength phase. So this is just what periodization is. So hypertrophy, we're going to build new muscle. Strength phase, we're going to strengthen the muscle. And then peaking phase, we're going to train our bodies to use the new, stronger muscle in the most efficient ways possible.
Right.
So those are kind of our cycles. But in those, in the past, we've kind of looked ahead to a point, and we've said, oh, the CrossFit Open is coming up at this time. We are going to peak for this. And then someone would be like, oh, I'm doing this local competition. And it's like, okay, let's look at the program. It's like, cool, we can actually put the whole gym on like a mini cycle that peaks right at this competition. So what we're trying this year is just to be a little more consistent with it. And we're going on 4 macro cycles. And a macro cycle is the big thing that contains the mesocycles. And the mesocycle would be hypertrophy. A mesocycle would be strength, deload, these types of things. So we're doing just a 3-week, and I might get this off without looking at it, but I think our cycles now are 3-week hypertrophy, 4 weeks of strength, 1 deload, 4 weeks of peaking, and then a taper before we're doing something. And then that's where we're planning our like AM versus PM competition or these other things. So we're doing a little, this is going to allow us to program much further out into the future, as opposed to kind of getting handcuffed when oh, now this is coming up, and oh, they changed the dates of the Open, or they haven't released when this happens yet. And then I'm sitting there trying to make the programming make sense from here at a point way out in the future, and it's kind of hard when those dates keep changing on us. So I think we're just going to kind of do our thing and try that out for a little bit.
See how that rolls.
Yeah.
So you're going to have roughly 3-month cycles that contain a hypertrophy, a strength, a peaking.
Yeah, they end up being 13 weeks, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Fiscal quarter for you.
There you go. 13 weeks and then benchmark week.
Okay. Yeah.
Which gives us our 52 weeks.
Okay. Perfect. So yeah, roughly 4 times a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then within each of those, like you said, your hypertrophy is 3 weeks. You're using Prelipin's, how do you say it?
Prelipin. Well,
chart.
actually, I don't know how to say it. I've read it 1,000 times.
Some Russian dude's chart.
Yeah.
To design the set scheme and the rep scheme and the weight scheme, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about kind of how that works?
So this does a few really good things for us. So Prelipin's chart was, I forget what years, but it was over the course of studying 30 years worth of, I think, Olympic weightlifting world-class training journals. And then what Prelipin did is he created a table that said within these intensities, so between like 55 and 65%, the minimal amount of reps that you should be doing is this, the optimal number is this, the maximal is this. And so now we have a very set baseline or benchmark that we can go off of to say if we're lifting in the 80% range and we're at the beginning of one of these cycles where we want to take it a little easier so we can work into it, then this is the minimum number of reps we need to do to elicit a response. That way we're not too short, and that way we're not overdoing it on the first week. But it also has the added benefit of we're not world-class athletes like we talked about. So I've expanded on Prelipin's chart for our own purposes because it goes from 100% and it goes down to 55%. But in CrossFit, we do a ton of WODs in the 35%, in the body weight range. Right. So I've expanded on it for our programming down, and I tweak it every now and then, coming up with the same minimum, optimal, maximal things. That way, as I'm designing strength work or designing WODs, I can make sure that the amount of work people are doing is within these guidelines. And then what we can do as being coaches that are around these people, as coaches that do the workouts ourselves, is we can say, oh, when we do these exercises, this is a little too taxing. This was more than what the chart told me. And so just little things like that is like we know we can handle a little more volume pressing, especially with strength work, than we can squatting. Because squatting, deadlifting is so brutal. Just on your nervous system, on everything, so taxing, so much more than pressing. So there's little tweaks and things we can make to it there. But basically I have a baseline of information that we can then choose. Are we going to have a hard day? Are we going to have an easy day? Is this whole week on average going to be harder or easier? Where do we need the volumes to line up? Where do we need the intensities to line up? And then we can actually choose rep schemes. Oh, we're doing an AMRAP. How many rounds do I actually want people to get? So we're not just like writing AMRAP 7 minutes. What would be cool? Here's what happens in open gym. This is my favorite thing. People go into open gym and they're just going to make up a workout. I can tell you what their workout is right now. Every single time. It's awesome.
Bench press.
It's 5. No. Because they want a WOD. They want a WOD. So it's 5 rounds.
Sure.
They get the rower, box jumps, kettlebell swings, wall balls. Every time. That's the workout. 5 rounds. Make up whatever numbers you want there. That's their open gym workout. And so that's what happens when you come in and you do random things. It's like, well, how many wall balls should you be doing in 5 rounds? What distance should we be rowing, and what's the stimulus of the workout we're trying to be? What weight are the kettlebell swings? Should this be light? Should this be heavy? What rep scheme should we be using? What do we want it to feel like? Yada, yada, yada. So next time you're doing or think back to the last time you made up your own workout.
I did it yesterday, so maybe we should use this. But I want to, before we, and we will do this, but before I go there, I want to make sure that we kind of clarify something in my head and hopefully for people. Mm-hmm. So hypertrophy versus the strength. In my readings, what I've learned is the strength side is on the lower of the rep continuum, 1 to 5 sets. The hypertrophy starts kind of the 5, maybe even 7 to 12, and that's where you start building it. So when you were talking, what I was envisioning was you're like, we're in a hypertrophy cycle, so I know my rep scheme needs to be, call it 8 to 12.
Yeah.
Right? And then you go back to Prelipin's chart and you kind of design percentages and sets and schemes based off of that.
And we know, like over the average of a hypertrophy phase, we want the average weight lifted to be something like 65 70%, something like that. And so then we know we also need to give ourselves a place to build up to, because we know week 1 with the new movement, our technique is not going to be as good as it is going to be in a couple weeks. And we know, and so that's, going back to why we do the same thing for a few weeks. Technique is a huge part of it. It's like if you're only touching a split jerk, however, so often, it's like but if you hit it back to back to back to back, then it's like you actually have the time with one movement to make these little tiny gains. Right. And then you can hold those technique gains for a long time. Right. But if you're just hitting, it's like double unders. You're not going to ever learn double unders by doing double unders in class once every week and a half.
We're coming back to double unders here in a bit.
So, so we know kind of where the average across the cycle needs to be weight-wise for certain rep schemes. And so then, we know we need to reach a minimum here. We might push the maximum by the end of the week, which is my favorite thing to do, is listen to everyone complain about how sore they are on those last weeks. But we're doing it and we're really controlling it. But I'm using that chart to be like, okay, at 55%, we know we can have a maximum of 30 reps. And so 3 sets of 10. Here we go. And, it gets more involved than that as we're trying to get variety across it all. And then in different phases too, like in hypertrophy phases, we call them overloading days. So overloading basically means having your body or having you do something that maybe you've never done before in your life. So in hypertrophy, where we're doing the somewhat lighter weight, higher rep schemes, we can have up to 2 overloading days for most muscle groups that week. Strength, we can have like 1 strength, and then we need to kind of back off, and then peaking for sure. When we're in the rep schemes of 1s and 2s, above 90%, it's like that's 1 every week at most is what we can handle. Some really big, strong people, they do a deadlift and they have to almost take 2 weeks off from lifting heavy. So everyone has kind of their different things, but these bigger, heavy lifts can really impact you for a while. Right. So, and something I wrote down just while I'm thinking about it real fast is gyms who do a strength bias programming get a bad rap sometimes from the CrossFit gyms. And the CrossFit gyms say, this is CrossFit, you're doing strength bias, that's for competitors, yada, yada, yada. So I wouldn't say what we're doing is a strength bias programming. I would just say part of what we've defined as what CrossFit is developing strength. Mm-hmm. And the way we need to develop strength is this way. So even though we're not classic CrossFit who does like strength on this day, WOD, or whatever it might be, and typically gyms that do like strength and a WOD are considered strength bias. Okay. But I don't consider that to be what we do. And it's not what we do every single day anyway. We don't always have a strength and a WOD every day. Yeah. But I wouldn't consider what we're doing strength bias unless you're on our actual strength bias program that we offer. That would be coming in on Thursdays for just lifting in addition to the stuff we're doing. I would just consider this framework to be what it needs to be to optimally develop strength alongside all of these things.
Yeah, I think you have to have some strength work in there, right? You can't just be... I agree with you on the CrossFit of the strength has to be something that's consistent and you see progress in, and it's a little less varied than the traditional CrossFit program. Yeah. Okay, so let's see how good Kyle is with this open gym. So my workout yesterday, designed for jiu-jitsu. So so
that's a different story.
So he nailed it, 5 rounds. What do you think the next one was? You were close.
Wait, where'd you do it? Here or at your house?
I did it here.
You did it here.
At open gym.
Let's throw rower in there.
You were close. 400-meter run.
Okay, you ran.
Yeah. Mainly because I forced people to run as part of their warm-up yesterday, and I damn near had mutinies in both classes. People were upset with me about a warm-up run.
And that's why you're not drinking coffee, because it's the same thing. It's like, if I'm going to make them do it, I better be doing it myself.
I was also wearing my Running Sucks t-shirt, so I had to go run afterwards. Yeah. So 5 rounds, 400-meter runs.
in a 400-meter warm-up run, it's like if you're just starting, I get it.
Yeah.
If you've been here for a while, a 400-meter warm-up run is a joke.
Yeah.
400 meters are terrible if you're going as hard as you can and you're doing repeats. It's terrible.
Yeah.
If you're going for a warm-up run, it is a joke. And I actually was in here. I had a meeting in this room, and I looked out, and everybody was laughing as they ran by. So they loved it. Okay. So the mutiny was not during. It was just beforehand. So y'all like running way more than you think you do.
It's an amazing thing. I'll say, go spend 2.5 minutes outside in a nice, easy jog.
Yeah.
And then I want you to come in and do 150 burpees.
Yeah.
People are upset about being outside.
But not the burpees.
They're like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. All right. So came back in. Then I did double. Kind of nailed this one too. Kettlebell.
There we go.
Farmer's walk.
I'm not sure the camera can see what you're writing.
I'll spell it out. Farmer's walk for 100 feet, basically.
So that's different than what I said. People usually...
You said kettlebell.
But using a kettlebell, doing farmer's walk is very different than kettlebell swings.
24 kilograms each hand. All right.
Which is...
53 pounds.
53, there we go.
All right, then I did hip extensions, so glute ham developer hip extensions. Hip extensions with a 95-pound barbell. Okay.
On your back?
No, so
holding
you get
it.
A snatch grip and
nice.
Hip extend.
Okay, snatch grip. I was wondering how you did it, but snatch grip makes sense.
Yeah, and then I did kipping. Kipping L sit raises. I don't know.
Yeah, so basically, straight leg, hanging knee raise, straight leg, yeah.
So this was my workout yesterday. So
nice.
Nailed the kettlebells. He got the row versus the run.
Yeah.
See, that's pretty good, Cal.
Well, I feel like
programming is terrible.
No, I feel like this is completely different than what I said people do. And I know for you too, you know what you've done this week. You know what your jiu-jitsu training looks like. You know what you got to do to support your jiu-jitsu training. And you can see that in there. Those weren't randomly chosen things for cardio reasons.
Yeah.
Or for this is CrossFit reasons. These are functional to what you're trying to do exercises.
Yeah, that's the idea, at least. So, folks, if you're going to design your own programs, have some intent behind them.
Exactly. And it's okay, if the intent is going to be, I just want a long, slow cardio workout, which I feel like that's what a lot of people, they put so much pressure on themselves in classes. Yeah. And some days they're coming in and they're just like, mentally, I just don't have it today. It's like, I understand that. Sometimes I am that way too.
Yeah.
And what I find is just don't put so much pressure on your workouts. Just come in and sweat. And then those are the days where being able to come up with a long, slow workout would be a good idea. Yeah. But you want to make sure you're coming up with a long, slow workout and you're not accidentally creating this monster of a workout that is going to destroy you. Yeah. Or you're not creating a workout wherein you are coming in to work hard that's not enough stimulus to do what you need to do that day.
Yeah, exactly.
And finding the middle there.
Yeah, don't come in here and do Murph as a recovery workout.
Yeah, that's
that's a general not a good idea.
Murph is, especially for people who don't have 50 to 100 push-ups.
Right.
Murph is a rhabdo machine because, again, if we're looking at Perlipin's chart and talking about how much volume and things that are appropriate, Murph, even for the best in the world, is at the high end of what's appropriate, the very high end. So take someone who's not world class, which is like all of us, have us do Murph, and it's like you've got to be really good at these exercises to be able to do it without one getting rhabdo, but also without being sore for a week and a half and having that diminish. Right. And there's a time and a place for that, especially if it's once a year. I'm going to do this thing that's outside of what I can do. But for most people, using Murph to get better, you got to scale it down to an appropriate number.
Exactly.
And that's why in classes we give, Because with weights, it's easy. It's like, okay, let's try and use about 50% of what our max is. Now I know we're at the appropriate levels, which is why we don't write RX weights as much anymore. Because as soon as you go a little too heavy, you're outside of the rep schemes that we're designing to optimally and maximally make you better, and it's actually going to make you worse.
Yeah.
Like Murph is probably going to make you worse,
right?
But it's a good experience to have every now and then.
Yeah.
But that's why even with pull-ups and things, we'll scale reps down for people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, if you can only do 15 strict pull-ups in a row, this is how many you should do in this workout. It's because we're trying to get you the absolute best workout for growth for you.
Right.
And a lot of people look at it like, oh, I can't do RX. It's like, no, it's not about, it's like, how do we make you as good as we can make you?
Right.
Like, that's what we're trying to do. And if you're trying to go RX on something where you shouldn't be going RX, it's actually going to be, it might not be a detriment. You still might be able to get better, but you're not getting better if you would have chosen the appropriate amount of reps.
Yeah, and this actually leads into, I think, the boot camp versus the CrossFit versions of class, right? And a lot of people naturally will gravitate towards the CrossFit because they think that it is harder or more CrossFit-y, I guess.
Yeah.
And the way that I try and explain it to people is it's not going to be a less of a stimulus. It may just be less technical, and therefore you may actually get a better stimulus out of it if you do the boot camp version, because you can actually perform the movements and get a good workout in, right? You can get the right stimulus in.
Man, I would say more often than not, the boot camp is harder than the CrossFit version. Because the CrossFit version, like you said, has the higher technique elements.
Right.
Which, if you're going to compete in CrossFit, you absolutely have to have.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to squat, snatch in a WOD.
Right.
But are we going to get a better workout today doing kettlebell swings? It's like, probably.
Yeah.
And so that might be the difference between those two there.
And let's use an extreme version of this, because
Yeah.
one that people, the clean versus the snatch, because this is where people kind of start losing their minds about wanting to be able to snatch versus being able to clean.
Yeah.
My personal opinion, and then I'll let you speak, is that a majority of people, if your stimulus or if your desire is to become more fit, then probably, unless you've been doing CrossFit forever and you've just absolutely mastered the clean, you should probably be doing cleans. Just because you're going to get the same pull from the floor, you're going to get the same hip extension, you're going to work a lot of the same muscles.
They're the same movement, except how you catch it.
Right.
But it's the same, control it, pull it in, drive with a jumping pattern.
Exactly. So you're going to develop those patterns, you're going to develop that power. Which
with heavier weight
right.
with the clean.
Yeah,
you can go much heavier on a clean.
Right. So you're going to develop that power much better in the clean than if you are struggling to be precise, to hit the preciseness that the snatch requires.
Yeah.
Right. The snatch requires great overhead mobility. It requires almost perfect form if you're going to go heavy on it. And if you've mastered the clean, then the snatch is something you need to work on and develop as a technique. But for the stimulus, again, my opinion, a lot of people should be doing clean work versus snatch work. Not to say only clean work, but a lot of the time should be doing clean work to develop those fundamentals.
And I'll kind of agree. So I think the snatch, what typically happens when people are new, they hate the snatch. Most can't do it. Mobility is a huge issue.
Right.
The clean is like, oh, I can grasp it. It usually starts with the jerk. People starting out, if you teach someone day one the split jerk, they feel like superhero.
Right.
It's this thing. I've learned how to drive weight up and push my body under. I've caught it in this weird split movement, because that's the cool thing. When you show someone who doesn't know what a jerk is, a split jerk, they immediately go, nope, there's no way.
Right.
And then when you teach them it and how it relates back to the squat, the push-up, and the jump like we do, it gives them this like big sense of like, oh, I get it. And I understand, instead of pressing weight up, I understand pushing my body down. And I'm landing in this cool split position. And now I can look up these YouTube videos and show my friends that like I'm split jerking.
Right.
It's really cool. Then what happens is they understand how that drive the bar up and then use the bar to pull yourself or push yourself around it relates to the clean. So then they start really liking the clean when the front rack comes around. Before the front rack is there, the clean is off. Oh my God, it's terrible. It hurts so much. It's just not very much fun. And when you don't have the confidence to squat, even partially squat, and you're catching it in these upright kind of splitty positions with your feet. Anyway, and then people just kind of naturally progress, and then they hate the snatch, and then once they start seeing how much leverage they can get with the barbell in their hip on the snatch, and once their overhead mobility and all these other things come around, the snatch for most people turns into the most fun thing. And then they don't like the clean because it's so kind of barbaric. And it's like, oh my God, because at that point, by the time you like the snatch, you've gotten good enough at it where you realize how heavy the clean, and it also means you've gotten good at the clean. And you realize how heavy the cleans are, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can mentally get myself up for lifting that weight. But then you get good at the snatch, and you're like, I don't know if I can mentally get myself to get under this weight anymore. So I think there's a fun component, and it's also like CrossFit's not for everybody, but if you think this is fun, then this is absolutely, in my opinion, the best way to work out for everyday life. It is the best way. But you kind of have to gravitate to the things you like. And it's why power lifters and Olympic weightlifters can get into CrossFit, but it also goes both ways. You start finding the things that add more variety. So I think the snatch can be something really good to work up to because it looks cool, but it ends up feeling cool, and you have to develop your ankles and your hips in the overhead position, and it's fun. But with that said, it is way, way riskier than a clean. Way riskier. And so that's where, at different stages of your training or your life, you might choose to do one or not the other. Or if a shoulder's feeling funky, you may remove this from your training program and go this way. So going back to it, I think you're absolutely right. And you should almost just forget that the snatch exists in the beginning. And it's what we tell all of our new people is like follow the boot camp program until you get really good, because the boot camp's going to be more basic and it's going to get you more fitness faster. You'll use the kettlebell swing more, which is the same pattern as the clean and the snatch, but simpler, so we can do it in a workout and we can get so many good simple reps in. Then develop the clean, because it's going to be the exact same patterns we use in the snatch. And along with developing the clean, we got to develop the overhead positions, which we're going to be developing in warm-ups and cool-downs and in WODs. We have to develop the squat. If your air squat's not great, your front squat, your back squat's not going to be good, there's no chance that your overhead squat is going to be any good. I think it took me 3 years before I was able to overhead squat. So I didn't start snatching when we first opened the gym back in 2012. I don't think we put snatch in the programming at all for the first year, because me, Blake, the other founder, we didn't snatch, and it's just like I couldn't overhead squat, he couldn't overhead squat. It was like this was kind of early, not the earliest days of CrossFit, but this was early when no one knew what CrossFit was. If you watch like the CrossFit games back in like 2009 to 2012, the most elite people at the CrossFit games can't snatch. It's like no one knew what this stuff was. But anyway, so we went years of doing cleans and squats and CrossFit. Even though snatching was part of CrossFit, we didn't do it for years. And then when we built it in, we had that big background of, oh, I know how to stabilize, I know how to create force in the jumping pattern, and I know how to receive in a squattish position, and I've overhead squatted, and I've done all these other things, so now I can start catching weight over. But I remember the first time I snatched, I was squat snatching back before I understood just go get the bar at its highest point, and that's what we should be doing. But I remember when I squat snatched 65 pounds for the first time, which is the barbell, 2 10-pound bumper plates, and it was like put it down, and I was like, I think I just did it. I think I just did it. And I was so excited for 65 pounds. Yeah.
It's just so skill and technique based.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's a skill, and that's kind of everything we do is everything is skill transfer. Right. And you have to have the foundation for these other things to be really, really good. And the earlier we introduce them with heavy weight, the more risk we're taking.
Right.
So we do get people started on the snatch way sooner in here, but we're very careful of not trying to get those people to max snatches. Yeah. It's almost always we're working up to the threshold of where does something go on, and let's correct that something. And so we kind of even stopped. We used to give specific rep schemes based off of Prilipin's chart for, okay, you're going to do a set of 2 at this. You're going to do a set of 2 here. And what we found is people were going way too heavy for their technique. Follow, and it's like, oh, that's reserved for once you've developed this move and you're extremely good at it, now let's work off of this stuff. But for 99% of us, let's start at a light weight. Let's build up to a threshold point and work. So, you can still, even as a newish person under a year, you can still do snatches to develop the technique. We'll need to go lighter. We'll need to add pauses in to make sure we're doing everything right. But would your time be better spent doing the clean, where your technique is going to be better, easier, and you're going to be able to load it way more? Probably. Yeah. So a lot of new people are getting gravitated to the snatch because it's a very and it's fun. It's cool.
Fun. It is fun.
It feels good, especially, nothing's guaranteed. If it's forward, it's gone. If it's back, it's gone. It feels good when it's right there.
Yeah, it's one of those that it's just beautiful when it happens. Yeah. And you feel it. It's such a tangible thing. When you actually hit it, it's like, oh, there it is. That was perfect. I know. You felt.
It feels good. Yeah. So if we're asking what is going to get someone the fittest they can be 6 months from now, it'd probably pretty straightforward be the clean. Yeah. Just do the clean. But if you're asking, hey, we just want to get better year after year after year after year and keep getting better and develop mobility and range of motion and all of these things, I'd kind of be like either. And that's why we don't draw a hard line, because it's like if you're going to go lighter in the snatch, actually work on developing these shoulder positions and these pulling positions, you're going to be going lighter, but it's just like, what's better, jumping with weight or jumping as high as you can with body weight? And the answers are different. Yeah. So even though it's lighter weight, we can still get a really big speed and power stimulus from a snatch with lighter weight. So it depends.
This kind of leads me into the next topic that I want to talk about, and these skills, which I put the snatches at a very high skill required movement. Probably
with ring muscle ups and bar muscle ups.
Ring muscle up, bar
handstand
muscle
push-ups.
Handstands in general.
Handstands.
Double unders.
Unders.
Triple unders, depending on who you are. So these, my approach has always been with skill work, like go do my foundational work, do my WOD. Skill work is something that I want to practice it a lot, right? It's not something that it's going to take away from the next day's workout if I want to go spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes after class practicing skill work. So maybe just go grab the bar and practice the snatch, right? Just developing motor patterns, or spend 10 minutes a day working on double unders, right?
Yeah.
And that's, again, something that I found that I can do, maybe not every day, but I can do it a lot, maybe 5 times during the week, and it doesn't affect any of my other workouts.
It's not fatigue and accumulated fatigue is part of what we consider in programming, is how fatiguing is the workout to your central nervous system, your muscles, this muscle group versus this muscle group, how much recovery does it need, all these other things. But a lot of the skill work you're talking about is not fatiguing at all, and it could actually be restorative. So you might actually be improving your recovery or warming up better for a class if you're doing it the right way. And it's not going to be a detriment, where if you're trying to get a bigger chest and now we're just adding in more push-ups and bench press randomly in the program, it's like that's fatiguing. And we have to keep the big picture of what the program is and what you're doing and how you're recovering we got to keep all of that in consideration, so you're actually making the progress that your efforts deserve,
Right.
as opposed to doing all this extra work but not actually improving, actually maybe going the wrong direction because we haven't timed it right and we did it too close to this other thing and we're not thinking about it right. But skills, they're not fatiguing. Like working on handstand, it's like, yeah, your shoulders would be like, they burn a little bit maybe after 10 minutes of handstand practice, but you're not going to be like 3 days later being like, oh, that 5 minutes of handstand practice I did. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So the one thing I would say is before class is way better than after class. Skill, just the neurological movement patterns of developing skill should happen fresh. Warm up, do it, and then work out. That will probably have way better effects than trying to do skills when you're tired.
Yeah.
Trying to do skills when you're tired, and that's what we do in workouts every now and then. It's like row really hard and then try and do double unders. If you're trying to learn double unders, you should do double unders and then row really hard. And so even in workouts, I'll switch people around. But if you're really good at double unders, a way we can get better, row really hard and now try and do double unders and try and figure it out under these different stresses. But when you're trying to learn it before class, grab that barbell and it's like warm up and do snatches, do cleans, squat, jerks, get the jump rope out, do double unders, try handstand, work on kipping pull-ups. And with kipping pull-ups, you have to be smart about the skin of your hands, but those are all things that could be great pre-class things to work on. And then after class, it just might be you might be too fatigued, especially for as much good practice to happen.
Yeah. And the key to me is for these, coming in and doing these skill-based movements in a WOD is not going to be enough to master them.
Exactly.
You're going to have to practice outside of the WOD, whether that's before, at home, some point.
Yeah.
If you want double unders, you're going to have to spend time investing in failing a lot at double unders before you get rhythm.
The people who are good are the people who just put the time in. That's it.
So.
But the cool thing about all these skills is it's not like you have to do double unders every day forever.
Right.
You have to do double unders every day until you have it.
Yeah.
And then you got to do it every now and then.
Yeah.
It's like I might do double unders every 2 weeks.
Right.
And it's nothing.
Yeah.
Same with people who've got handstands. It's like, you're not going to be as good as you would be if you did them all the time. But once you've had them at one point in your life, you're going to be way better at it, or you can ramp it up to a very high level fast.
It's very, very difficult to attain the skill,
and
it's shockingly easy to maintain it once you have it.
Yeah, because once you have those connections, you've got them.
Yeah.
So that's I think it's how we've developed all the skills we've developed is you just go all in. So instead of picking snatches and double unders and all these things, which you could do, you could easily come up with a quick little 15 to 30 minute pre-class non-fatiguing, I can't emphasize the non-fatiguing part enough, non-fatiguing little thing that includes getting a barbell out and barbell technique and double unders and some handstand stuff. That would be great. You might just be better off being like 10 minutes double unders until I have them.
Right.
Snatch with the barbell until I'm comfortable enough to, now when it comes up in classes, it's like, oh, I understand what I'm doing. Handstand, same thing. Just get to the level that you're happy with and then just maintain it there.
Yeah. And go on to obtain another skill.
Yeah. But I think, and we'll do it, part of our cycles, it's just like the strength work of developing the technique. We go on cycles of skills. Usually a couple people love it and people get sick of it and they're like, it's the third week of handstands. And it's like, yeah, but we don't have to do it for a long time after this. But it gives people, and it's amazing to see their progress because it's like, think of it if you're someone who's just trying to kick up to the wall for the first time. And then we do that once a month. It's like, for the next 3 years, you're going to be trying to kick up against the wall. Maybe you get it one time, and the next time you come in, and you're still trying to kick it. But if we do it for 3 weeks, it's like you're going to get up to the wall, then you're going to turn the other direction, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And now we've got you past this point. So now when we come back to it a week or two or 6 months from now, it's like, okay, I'm starting at a different level this time.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, cool. That's all I have for the Q&A part.
Nice.
Maybe just as a wrap up, one final question. What's the biggest opportunity you see for folks new or experienced in the gym? Like coming in doing mobility, or is it pre-workout stuff?
It's a trick question.
Trick question.
It's
listen to your coaches.
Well, yeah, duh. It's sleep.
Okay.
It's nutrition. It's taking 10,000 steps a day, and it's just every day finding a time to put yourself. It's like you're not going to outwork bad choices outside of the gym, and it's man, there's just so many stories at the world-class level of people retiring from their sport, sleeping, starting to eat well, and then feeling so good that they unretire from their sport and they come back better than ever. And there's Olympic weightlifters. There's a guy, I think his nickname's like Mighty Mouse. He retired because he was having to hit painkillers every day. He was in constant pain. Same thing. Cleaned up his diet, came back, no painkillers, never felt better. So all of these little performance issues and recovery, people being sore for longer, bad food causes inflammation, lack of sleep hurts your motivation. That's where you build muscle and recover. It's just like, oh my goodness, there's so much opportunity for performance in what you're eating, how you're sleeping, just being active and actively recovering. Like, people have probably heard that a million times, active recovery. It's not just do nothing on a rest day. It's like throw a backpack on and go for a walk. Just an anecdote, Monday, everyone this week, and I'm sure this could be listened to at any time. So on Monday we worked up and ended up doing 4 sets of 4 at 80%. Back squats. Heavy, hard. And then right afterwards, we did like a short little 7-minute medium weight thruster sumo deadlift type pull workout, like designed as crush your legs accessory work to the back squats. People were crushed all day. Even Thursday, Friday, people were still telling me they were crushed. Yeah. I did the exact same thing. I later that day put on the little ruck, went for like a 2.5-hour walk, which was hard. I thought it was hard. And then the next day, I felt like I could tell the power wasn't in my legs. Mm-hmm. Wasn't sore at all. I felt absolutely amazing just because of flushing my legs, getting the blood flow going. And so there's just so much outside of the gym opportunity that people want to talk about supplements and how to get better at, or how to, and it's like, what workout program do they need to do? And it's like, if you can take care of this, you might already be doing the thing that is going to skyrocket you. Yeah. And you're just not putting yourself in a position to get everything out of it. It's like you're already putting in the work that you need to put in. Now you just got to get your life in order. Yeah. And then the added benefit to that is, it's like we talk about all the time. Now it's not just performance. It's how your tissues and joints and your injuries is how all that feels on a daily basis, and what you look like. And now you get to actually look ripped or toned, whatever you can make yourself look however you want to look with that support, and your overall health and wellness is incredible too. And so then promotions and your career, you're just more productive at everything you do in your life.
Yeah, life gets easier.
Yeah, and everyone acts like doing all those things is so hard. It's like, yeah, learning how to do it all is hard. Learning how to do double unders is hard. Once you know how to do them, double unders are incredibly easy. Right. And it's, how many do you want me to do? Fine. It's like, I don't want to, but here we go.
You stopped at 400 because you got bored?
Exactly. I think that one was 500, okay. But yeah. I haven't in a while tried to see how many I could do. It's like running a marathon. You got to be motivated. Yeah. And when you get to the 5-minute mark of just doing double unders with no one else around, and you're just like, why am I doing this again? It's pretty easy to be like, that's enough for right now.
All right.
What would your answer to the question be?
No, I like it. I think the nutrition is obviously where I see most people Actually, maybe that's not true. That's a big one because people come to the gym, they get their workout in, and then they feel like they have the freedom to go and eat whatever.
Yeah,
and
like they're earning it.
They're earning it, and that's, I think we talked
they're
about this
unearning it.
Yeah.
You work out and you go eat like crap, and now instead of boosting to here, you boosted to here. It's like you just unearned what you did at the gym.
Yeah, and that's the first podcast we did. We talked about, my tip was, I want you to eat for the gym. Don't go to the gym to eat.
Yeah.
Like design your nutrition so that you improve your performance in the gym. I think that's huge, and that's where, as I mentioned, my real transformation took place.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that I see, is especially with a younger crowd. They're like, I got my Friday workout in. I'm going out with the boys tonight. We're going to pound beers and salsa and nachos and whatever and watch the game. And they come in and it's Monday. It's like,
why am I not getting better? Why am I not getting better? It's like, well, this is a pretty easy answer. Yeah. It's one you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And everyone's trying to sell that if you just come to my gym and work out, everything you want in life is going to happen. It's like they're all lying.
Yeah, it's not
they're
true.
all lying. It's like if you see a trainer who's ripped, ask them what their lifestyle choices are.
Right.
And it either involves steroids or involves just a lot of effort, and I wouldn't even call it effort, but just a lot of, at one point in their life, setting themselves up for success with like, this is how I eat, I get enough sleep, it's pretty simple what I do, it just took me a while to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I think the nutrition is where people sabotage themselves knowingly. Like, everyone realizes, yes, I should eat healthy.
Yeah.
I think people haven't quite understood the impact of sleep yet.
Yeah.
So that's by far the easiest to me, is like, once you just get some sleep, it's like, even with my coffee experiment, it's like, I thought I was sleeping really good, and I was, but it got better.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable. And just waking up and feeling amazing, man, that's reward.
Yeah.
And that's a day, 2 days, and bam, that box is checked, and you never want to go back.
And then going back to these high-level powerlifting and strongman coaches that I've been getting into lately, is their thing is sleep is more important than steroids. And, of course, we're everyday people. We're not touching steroids. That's stupid. There's no reason to. But when the people who are on steroids are saying sleep is more important than steroids, it's like, and these aren't just like health, it's like these are people training the best in the world.
Right.
So when they are saying sleep is more important than steroids, you better start sleeping.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Just
your friend Mark Bell, Smelly, the documentary his brother made back when he was on steroids, and so check it out. Bigger, faster, stronger, faster, bigger, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So these guys that are talking about how important sleep is, a lot of them have lived the past.
Yeah.
So
and we've talked about it before, but like some Olympic rowers sleep 16 hours a day. Because it's like steroids. It's like it's so valuable to it.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, Bowie.
Thank you, sir.